Just in terms of some of the big technology changes that have happened through 2024 was the frontier models really started to improve. We also saw a kind of a divergence between closed models and open models with Facebook and essentially XAI coming out with their open source models. The closed source models really kind of accelerated in terms of big rounds of raises. And then probably towards the middle of the year, uh, it became clear that uh, the ability for large language models to kind of improve was starting to slow. And so what we saw was kind of the big frontier models starting to implement a terminology or a technology called inference, where essentially it allowed for additional time to reevaluate its responses. That essentially created another bottleneck around resources for in terms of compute. And then we saw a huge amount of money, time, effort being thrown into that direction. So probably those were like the really big highlights in terms of 2024 in terms of the frontier models. Uh, the next kind of really big movement was around agents and the idea of creating these kind of small agents to be able to complete a particular task, or they were essentially uh, trained to be able to deliver a particular outcome. Uh, and so we saw technologies like Crew AI really kind of explode onto the front. We saw technologies like LangChain, although they've been around since 2022, really kind of accelerate into uh, frontline enterprises. And so I would say that would be at a kind of an application layer where we saw quite a big movement through 2024. And then I would also say, just in terms of from a data perspective, by the beginning of 2024, most of the internet, most of the open internet had already been scraped or ingested into the large language models. And so there was kind of a look towards where else can we find new data? And then the idea of synthetic data really kind of came to the fore. The problem is that it is essentially derivative data, and so it didn't quite work out the way that everyone was kind of hoping. Um, the next area that, from a data perspective, I think everyone is kind of looking at would be it's almost like real-time data or 3D data that is probably going to start coming down the line. It hasn't materialized in any shape, way, or form, but the idea is that potentially could be an area. So that is essentially around spatial computing, and it almost allowing the models to start ingesting that data because it provides essentially real-time tactile almost feedback. So you can think about this in the context of like a Tesla, and the car actually driving in a street and being able to pick up information real time around people, cars, animals, and you can kind of get a sense of how much data just lies within that, as opposed to what is kind of being extracted out of our heads and onto paper or into pictures. So yeah, those would probably be the kind of the main areas I would say in 2024 that really kind of started pushing the envelope of where AI can go. Probably the biggest announcement came in August of this year, July, August, with the EU AI Act coming to be. I mean, we've been pretty much talking about it since 2021, and the fact that it has arrived is kind of a pretty big thing, right? It is the first kind of full all-encompassing AI piece of legislation. And I think that is, that is really quite a big change or diversion, if you will, from where previously the industry had gone. And up until then, everyone was kind of, we need legislation, we need legislation. We've seen out of the US and a couple of the big names in tech all asking for a slowdown in artificial intelligence, all asking for a uh, kind of a rethinking in terms of the potential risks around AI. And that was really towards the latter part of 2023, coming into the beginning of 2024. What is interesting is that that has actually, those calls have slowed a little, just in terms of the request for legislation, if you will. And that was pretty much about the same time that the EU AI Act actually came out, which was, as I said, towards the end of July, beginning of August, or 1st of August. Um, and a lot of those advocates have kind of rolled back, because I know in California, they attempted to put out their first piece of legislation. It's gone back. But yeah, I would say that would be one of the biggest elements. The other one would be around May of 2024. ISO released 42001. So 42001 is the AI management service, management system that an organization can adopt to implement quality controls inside their organizations to ensure that their AI systems that they implement at a data layer, at an application layer, um, and also in terms of UX, in terms of the governance for designing, implementing, and securing AI technologies. Um, Maybe just one other thing, just I know we'll get into 2025 in a bit, but probably the next key element, because everyone will be starting to gear up towards it, would be around the prohibited AI practices, and is coming in early 2025. So from a legislative perspective, I think everyone was starting to kind of understand that this is coming down the line. And what I've seen is that there is quite a big jump in terms of awareness around the need for ethical AI, the need for governance around AI. And we'll get into the details of exactly what I mean by governance in a bit. In terms of AI security, it is it is quite a new area, right? Mainly because we're starting to kind of only just starting to get our heads around generative AI in terms of what it can be used and how it can be used within an organization. So probably one of the areas that you would typically try and infect from an AI perspective would be around the actual data itself. So pre-building a model or pre-training a model, you would almost want to create disruptions in the data within those particular applications. Also, just in terms of generative AI, typically you are rolling that into an agentic workflow, which is leveraging relatively old technology, especially when you're looking at it from a reactive AI perspective. We've had reactive AI for the better part of 30, 40 years now. So in terms of information security, that would be an area that one would attempt to address or infect. The other one would be typically um, when you have generative AI and it needs to contextualize information that is coming down the line, again, you could almost move or shift the AI off its guardrails by affecting the actual application layer and changing the prompts or the expected outcomes or the guardrails that would be coming down the line. Those would be essentially at an application layer. Again, you've still got all of the old infrastructure challenges that you typically had. And then, of course, you also going to start running into other challenges around encryption. So leveraging AI to actually start brute forcing into organizations that are using potentially exposed software. So using AI to actually generate exploits a lot faster, using AI, Gen AI to be able to start to break down encryption layers. And that is probably the main sort of challenges that are going to be coming down the line. It's more around the acceleration that essentially the bad actors will have at as a tool at their disposal. So if you're not using the latest and greatest, you're not having strong patch cycles, those basic principles are going to expose you a lot faster. And I think that's really the kind of the key takeaway here from a cybersecurity at this particular point. I think if the tool sets kind of explode like they did when we saw a lot of technology moving into an online space, we saw the exploits really kind of come to the fore. And I think it doesn't really change the attack vector, which is principally the data that bad actors would be going after. And I think the prize for the data or of the data now becomes so much more because a lot of that data that they typically would have wanted will be a lot more concentrated use given the current methodologies that are used to string agentic workflows together, have access to all of that data. So I think the stakes are just higher in terms of the information security. But again, because we're only just starting to bring agentic workflows into our organization, so that's combining reactive AI with limited memory AI, the space is still pretty much in flux. The other area that I would probably kind of lean on is the is access control. Again, I think access control has always been kind of a mainstay pillar when it comes to information security and cybersecurity, because if you can essentially lock that down, lock down your network, lock down access to that, it becomes well, it becomes a lot harder to break in through exploits. So uh, again, that is essentially maintaining its mainstay as a core practice. I think the biggest challenges is going to be around the speed at which bad actors are going to be able to exploit vulnerabilities that will be coming out into the wild.